Hi, this is Susie Daphnis and Kat Matson coming to you from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. One of the people we got to see earlier this week was Julian Assange and from WikiLeaks. So one of the things they've also been able to do is uncover someone else who we didn't expect.
Yeah, Ed Snowden was the keynote speaker yesterday, or Edward Snowden, as most of the world would know him, yet he was referred to Ed yesterday. It was a really interesting conversation around privacy and security of our data. Now, just for people who aren't fully aware of the Ed Snowden story, he was the guy who blew the whistle, basically, on the NSA's mass surveillance of internet data and telephone data here in the States. He's now had to go into hiding. He's living somewhere where supposedly the American government can't reach him, and he came to us yesterday at South by via 7 proxies using a Google Hangout. That's an interesting point in itself, the fact that it was a Google Hangout. I'll come to that later. Look, there were some really interesting conversations in that for me around privacy, security, who I'm willing to give my data to versus the government's, as I said, mass surveillance. So a couple of key distinctions. First of all, the issue was that the NSA, without telling anybody, just started tracking all internet and phone communications. Snowden's issue with that, and rightly so, is one, we should know, two, that is a breach of constitutional rights here in America. His argument then is we might need surveillance, but let's have it not be mass surveillance. You need, as a government agency, need to go through proper process in order to access that information, and it should be targeted too. If there is suspicious activity, then you go looking for that information, not this notion of surveilling everything and then keeping it forever was another thing. As he pointed out, if that data is kept forever, that might be fine under the current administration, but in 5, 10, even 15 years, there might be a totally different administration who decides to take issue with something and retrospectively use that data against you. So there were some pretty interesting concepts. I'm not going to call them scary. One of the other questions that then came up was, well, what's the difference between Google and Facebook keeping our data, and why don't we want the government to be keeping it in the same way? And his argument was spot on. He said, Google and Facebook are marketing or advertising companies. They keep your data in order to advertise to you. That's the worst that they can do. The government, on the other hand, they can impinge on your human rights. They can arrest you. They can detain you. And he said, I don't think that's fair or nice. And at least if Google and Facebook have that information, then the government should have to go through due process to get it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if it's okay for Google and Facebook or other sites to have a level of surveillance and then dish up to us the news or information they think we should see, is that not an impingement on our ability to find and reach any information we want?
Oh, no, that's a whole other conversation, which I love. I'm not sure that it's an impingement. We certainly, as internet consumers, we need to be aware that the more we use those algorithms to feed us information, we need to be aware of how much that closes our circle, literally. And that's something that I think we see over and over again in these conversations. When the algorithm feeds up information, it's based on what we did yesterday, the day before, last week, which therefore, by very definition, is going to mean that it gets even harder for new information to come in. That is something that I think as an aware consumer we need to kind of go, okay, every now and then I'm just going to jump out of my usual world to bring in some more information. I think that the takeaways from me from the Snowden talk as a non-technical person is, one, be aware when I do sign up to a new site, what kind of encryption is that site using? His point was, if you're using free services like Gmail, there's a fair chance that they're not going to be giving you the top level of encryption there is available. His call to the tech community was very much improve your encryption. It's actually not hard. And he was coming to us via a Google Hangout, which was kind of ironic given that Google does keep so much information, but via 7 proxies. And he said, I'm encrypted. No one can find me right now, and yet I'm sitting here. He said, it's not hard. It's just that as a tech community, we haven't done it well enough yet and made it easy enough for the lay consumer to access those kind of encryption technologies. And the other thing I think that really raised my awareness was be aware of what I'm willing to share online, again, from that data permanence perspective. So, look, it was a really fascinating conversation. It opened my eyes up quite significantly to the whole Snowden whistleblower conversation, but it embedded, again, that whole theme that we've seen all South by this year, privacy and data security, and how increasingly important it is as the internet and us just interweave. Like, it's a bit Matrix-like. We're not separate anymore from the internet. We are in and out of the internet. So it was just that notion of being conscious of what you share and how secure that information is.
And kudos to the people at South by for doing what it took to bring this man who, this is the first interview I think he's done since he went into hiding, and giving us the opportunity to hear his voice. Thanks. More soon from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas.